Welcome to Break the Loop, the place where shadows transform into personal power. Here we break the loop, shift timelines, and step into the highest version of ourselves. In episodes 1 to 6, you learned how loops form, how shadows activate, how emotional echoes take over, how to interrupt the loop in real time, and how to rewire the emotional, narrative, and identity layers. Today, in episode 7, we enter a new stage of your transformation, stabilizing the new timeline. This is the episode where the version of you who is healed, regulated, grounded, sovereign, and aligned begins to take root. Because you can break the loop and rewire the pattern, but the transformation becomes permanent only when you stabilize the identity that the loop no longer belongs to. Today, we're not just shifting, we're staying shifted. We are stepping into the part of your journey where you become the new you consistently, confidently, and without falling back into the past. This episode is about holding the frequency of your new identity and letting it become your reality. Transformation has 2 stages, change and stabilization. Most people experience the change and the breakthrough moment, the awareness, the shift, but they never move into stabilization. And without stabilization, the old loop can return, not because something went wrong, but because the new identity hasn't been anchored deeply enough. Stabilization matters because it teaches your nervous system that the new you is safe. It teaches your subconscious that this is the new normal. It teaches your emotional body that this identity is not temporary. It is the new foundation. Without stabilization, the old emotional memory may still try to rise. The old narrative may still whisper. The shadow identity may still reach for control. But with stabilization, the new identity becomes consistent. It becomes familiar. It becomes embodied. It becomes you. Stabilization is the difference between temporary change and permanent transformation. Change is the moment something shifts. It's the spark, the insight, the breakthrough, the moment you recognize a pattern or choose a new response. Change is powerful, but it is momentary. Stabilization is the process of embedding that change into your nervous system, your emotions, your choices, and your identity. Change is the invitation. Stabilization is the embodiment. Change is when you choose differently once. Stabilization is when the choice becomes your default. Change is the first breath of freedom. Stabilization is building the life that matches that freedom. Change is the beginning. Stabilization is the completion. Many people believe transformation ends at change, but true transformation only begins there. Stabilization is where the new identity becomes your natural state. Not something you reach for, but something you live from. To stabilize your new timeline, you need structure, something that supports the emotional, behavioral, and identity layers of your transformation. This is where the Stabilisation Pyramid comes in. At the base is state stabilization, the emotional and somatic foundation. This includes breath, posture, grounding, and nervous system regulation. If your state isn't stable, your identity can't stabilize. The second layer is behavioral stabilization, where you act consistently with your new identity. This includes micro-boundaries, micro-responses, and micro-choices, the small behaviors that reinforce who you are becoming. At the top of the pyramid is identity stabilization, the moment where you can confidently say, "I don't do that anymore. That old version of me is gone." Identity stabilization is not about perfection, it's about consistency. When these 3 layers align, the new timeline becomes your dominant reality. You no longer slip back into the old loop because the emotional, behavioral, and identity foundations have shifted. The first and most essential part of stabilizing your new timeline is state stabilization, anchoring your emotional and somatic state so it can support your new identity. When your emotional state is dysregulated, the old loop has room to pull you back. But when your state is grounded, the new identity feels natural. State stabilization begins with the breath. A long, slow exhale tells your nervous system, "I am safe." Your shoulders drop, your chest softens, your jaw releases. Your posture shifts from collapsed to open. You place one hand on your chest or belly to anchor your body in the present moment. You bring your awareness downward, out of the mind and into the body. You regulate through touch, through breath, through stillness, through posture. When your body feels safe, the new identity becomes easier to embody. This is why breathwork, grounding, and somatic awareness are not optional. They are essential for stabilizing the loop-breaking process. Your new identity can only thrive in a regulated body. Once your emotional state is regulated, the next layer is behavioral stabilization. Behavior is the evidence your subconscious looks for. When you act as the new identity repeatedly, the subconscious says, "This is who we are now." Behavioral stabilization doesn't require grand gestures. It requires micro-actions. A micro-boundary where you previously would have collapsed. A micro-pause where you used to react impulsively. A micro-choice to speak calmly instead of defensively. A micro-step toward your higher timeline. A slight shift in tone, posture, pace, or presence. These micro-actions create macro-transformation. They signal to your nervous system, we are choosing differently now. Behavioral stabilization also means being consistent. Not perfect, just consistent. Even when discomfort arises, even when fear appears, even when the shadow whispers, you act from the new identity. And with each consistent action, your new timeline strengthens and the old one weakens. This is how behavior becomes identity. Identity stabilization is the most powerful moment in the entire process. It's the moment you realize you are no longer the version of yourself who created the loop. Identity stabilization is when you naturally think, choose, feel, behave, and respond in alignment with your new timeline. It's the moment you can confidently say, "I don't do that anymore." Not because you're forcing yourself, but because the old behavior no longer fits. Identity stabilization happens when emotional neutrality becomes normal, when triggers feel softer, when stories lose power, when reactions feel slow and intentional. It's the moment your higher identity becomes embodied, not aspirational, but actual. You are no longer trying to become the new you. You are the new you. This is the moment where you realize you've crossed a threshold. You have stepped into a new version of yourself, and there is no going back. As you stabilize your new timeline, it's normal to experience friction. Emotional spikes may still appear, old thoughts may resurface, the shadow identity may resist, doubt may whisper, and you may wonder whether you're going backward. But friction is not failure. Friction is the resistance that appears when the old pattern is dying. It is the nervous system adjusting to a new way of being. It is the subconscious clearing out old files. It is the emotional body releasing old memories. It is the identity shifting gears. Friction doesn't mean you're slipping, it means you're stabilizing. You are rewiring at a deep level, and your system is reorienting. This is why compassion is essential during this stage. Instead of judging the friction, recognize it as a sign of progress. You are not going backward, you are stabilizing forward. Before a loop fully dissolves, it often returns one more time, not to punish you, but to confirm your transformation. This is what I call the shadow test. The shadow test may show up as an old trigger, a familiar emotional echo, a situation that mirrors your past, someone from an old timeline returning, or a moment where your old behavior feels tempting. The shadow test is not a setback, it is a rite of passage. It asks, are you sure this is who you are now? The test is not about perfection, it's about consistency. When you respond as the new identity, the loop collapses. The old pattern loses its last source of energy. The emotional charge dissolves, the narrative collapses, the identity stabilizes. Passing the shadow test is not a battle, it is a choice. And when you choose your new identity in the face of your old triggers, you graduate to a new timeline. To pass the shadow test, you follow the same sequence you learned in episodes 5 and 6, but now with deeper confidence. You pause, you breathe, you name the emotional echo rising in your body. You collapse the old story. This belongs to the past. You remind yourself, I choose the version of me who doesn't repeat this pattern. Then you take the smallest possible action that aligns with your new identity. You soften your voice. You delay your reaction. You breathe instead of collapsing. You choose clarity over fear. You choose presence over autopilot. You choose your new identity over your old shadow. You don't need to win a battle. You just need to choose differently once. That one conscious choice stabilizes your new timeline. That one moment becomes the anchor point that shifts your entire reality. As your new identity stabilizes, you will begin to feel a profound shift within yourself. Triggers that once felt overwhelming now feel muted. Emotional spikes dissolve faster. The old narrative feels boring or irrelevant. You recover from emotional activation quickly. Your body feels more relaxed by default. Your reactions become slower and more intentional. You no longer collapse into old emotional states. You speak more clearly. Your decisions align with your higher self. You feel a new sense of self-respect, clarity, and inner authority. You don't chase validation. You don't seek approval. You don't lose yourself in old stories. You begin to trust yourself. These are the signs that your new timeline is stabilizing, that your transformation is becoming embodied and permanent. When stabilization is complete, your inner world feels profoundly different. You feel emotionally neutral where you once felt reactive. You feel grounded where you once felt unstable. You feel confident where you once felt insecure. You feel calm where you once felt overwhelmed. The old identity feels distant, irrelevant, or even foreign. You stop trying to hold the new identity because it holds you. Your nervous system recognizes it as home. Your choices become effortless. Your boundaries become natural. Your clarity becomes consistent. The world around you begins to reflect your new timeline because your internal world has changed. Full stabilization feels like coming home to yourself. It feels like ease. It feels like truth. It feels like finally living the life your higher self has been calling you toward. To help you stabilize your new identity, I want to give you a simple daily ritual, the timeline anchoring ritual. This ritual has 3 steps. First, breath, one long, slow exhale to regulate your nervous system. Second, identity statement, affirming the version of you who is choosing this new timeline. Something like, I choose the version of me who stays grounded. I choose the version of me who responds with clarity. I choose the version of me who no longer repeats the old pattern. Third, micro-action, a small behavior that aligns with your new identity. It could be speaking your truth, taking a pause, setting a boundary, breathing instead of reacting, or choosing a calmer response. These 3 steps, breath, identity, action, anchor your timeline and reinforce your transformation. This ritual stabilizes your new identity faster than anything else. Now that you've learned how to stabilize your new timeline internally, you are ready for the next stage of your transformation. In Episode 8, we explore how to protect your new identity in the external world, how to maintain your new frequency around other people, especially in relationships where old loops were created. Episode 8 will teach you relational loop breaking, emotional sovereignty, and energetic boundaries. This is where you learn how to hold your new identity not just with yourself, but with the world around you. This concludes Episode 7 of the Break the Loop, Shadow to Power series. You have learned the difference between change and stabilization, the 3 layers of the Stabilisation Pyramid, how to regulate your emotional state, how to act from your new identity, how to pass the shadow test, and how to recognize the signs that your new timeline is anchoring. This episode is the moment where your transformation becomes real, embodied, and lasting. Until then, break the loop, shift the timeline, and become your higher self.